If we look at the advent of media in the city, what we're seeing right now is that there is a lot of media that start tracking what we are doing in the city. CCTV cameras, chip cards. So there's all this data of what we're doing in the city. And I guess a really important question is, what does that mean for the public sphere? And I would say there's probably two scenarios. The first scenario is that all these data is used to make the city more efficient or more personal. So if, for example, a company or people who make an app, if they know what you're doing in the city, then they start to point you to other places in the city that are similar, like you see on Amazon. You know, people who bought this book also bought this book. So people who went to these places will also go to that place. So there is a certain risk that will lead to social fragmentation in the city, you know, where people are only going to places where they will meet exactly the people that they already know or that look like them. I guess what an important opportunity is that if you look at all this data and you bring it together and you put it on maps or you visualize it in another way, you can bring out particular issues that you couldn't that you maybe weren't aware of before. I think a really interesting example is the project Trash Track by MIT. What they're actually doing is that they made little sensors with GPS functionality, and they invited people to come to the library in Seattle, bring something that they wanted to throw out, like an old sneaker or a coffee cup, and they threw it away. And then for the next 3 or 4 weeks or even months, you could see where your piece of trash went. So you saw a map of what happened with your trash, and the map was made very beautiful. So what this did was actually a problem. You know, it's just throw it away and it's out of sight, out of mind. Now it's becoming tangible, it's becoming visible, and it can become a starting point for maybe a conversation or a political campaign or whatever around this issue. If you look at the data that we're assembling in the city, I guess there are several ways in which you can turn those into stories. The first one is obviously data visualization, although I'm not really if it really is a story. I mean, it's a visualization of a process, and you can show what's happening. For example, you know, what are the hotspots in the city? Where is everybody right now? Where are the buses? How is the air quality right now? Of course, it doesn't turn into a story until you add a dramatic element. So, whereas I think they're really interesting as conversation pieces, meaning that they're the starting point for the story, but not so much the story itself. So you can shape stories around it. Another way is, of course, to use the digital media as a platform where people can tell stories themselves. You know, where you can have people upload stories to a central database, and other people can read those. The problem with that is, though, that there's many of these projects, and they're often done by artists, and they're often really beautiful, but you know, who actually reads or watches those stories? It's very easy, of course, to attach a story to a map. You know, you have a Google Map and you put a pin and you put a story there. But I guess the challenge is to design an interface or involve audience actually around them. So I guess the $1 million question is, how do we actually make data visualizations that go beyond mapping and a beautiful picture and engage the audience? And I guess we don't have a definite answer for that yet. There are some interesting directions that I'm seeing. Usually what is a good way, what can be successful is if you can make individual contributions of people visible. So you don't show just a map of, you know, how bad the air quality in the city is, but you also show, like, okay, this is what you contributed to it, or this is how much you saved by walking today rather than, you know, taking the car, or rather than taking the train rather than flying. I think that's one thing. Another thing that could be interesting is actually to move beyond the representation online and a map and actually bring it back into public space and organize an event or a game or a play around it, so you engage people in a physical way again.